last 2.5 months, my dad was with me, and I saw him every day, and we talked every day, and that was a good blessing to me for being with him for this last 2.5 months, because I was yeah, because I was in the military and I was gone for over 22 years. We were gone, and we were really not around, to see him. But for the last 2.5 months, I really enjoyed being with him and talking with him every day. And he liked Georgia, but he didn't like the bugs. He said, I go outside and all these bugs always come around my face. So I always said, well, they must like you, because they don't come around my face. so I said, they like you must be nice and sweet, because they like you. And another thing I remember, he used to always live in big city, in Boston, and there's no land over there. All the houses are all closed, and you don't see too much trees or anything like that. So when he came over here, and a lot of people have a lot of trees and stuff, so he asked me, he said, why all these people living in the bush? He called it the bush. I said, well, that is not Boston. We have a lot of land over here. And I said, when somebody buy a house over here, they'll get 4 or 5 acres of land with it, and they're the only one there, and the closest neighbor is 5 acres away from you. So you say, yeah, it's still the bush, he said, because your house is all in the trees and all that stuff. So, but he's not accustomed with all those trees and all that stuff. So for the last 2 months, and the last few things I remember from him, since he's been with me, he always take the trash out and take it out to the road. And so when we went to the hospital, there was on Tuesday, and he said, he told me, don't forget to take the trash out. He said, don't forget to take the trash out. And he also told me, he had a shower that morning. He said, oh, I need to tell you, I put some new soap in the soap machine. He put a new soap in there. Yeah, so, well, I don't know if I can say something.
Well, I think everybody knows Dad and Grandpa. His big thing was about all the different cars, as we all know. I remember the first time I worked with him on the car was our big gray in a 1969 Impala that had a white top, and the car was gray. It was the first car I bought when I was here. And of course, he just didn't like this car because it wasn't powerful enough, so he had to change the carburetor. So the first time I did, he wanted to change the carburetor to a 4-barrel carburetor. So we changed that thing to a 4-barrel carburetor. Of course, then he wasn't buying the gasoline, I was buying the gasoline for 4-barrel carburetor. So that's the first one we worked on. And then the next great story about him and his car was Auntie Patty's mom's car that she owned for a while. Beautiful car, white top, red, and Patty must have had it for, I don't know, 10, 15 years before we got it. And so on this car, when I came home to Boston, that's what I would use on the weekend to go to Saugus to see Priscilla and the kids, and or just go downtown or go to Mitchell's and Patty's house. And of course, he was always tinkering with this thing. Nothing was wrong with it, but he was there fixing everything. So once he and we were on the highway, and the fan, all of a sudden the car died. We pulled over to the side, and there was a fan belt. And of course, he had an extra fan belt in the trunk of the car. So in the highway, we changed the fan belt in the highway, and we got going. It was fairly close to the house. So that wasn't a problem. Of course, now as everybody knows, his latest thing was all Uncle Mitchell's Jeeps of all various types. You name them. Of course, I won't tell Uncle Mitchell this, but I tell him, why are you getting all these junk Jeeps and you could buy something new? But he and Uncle Mitch would go find these Jeeps everywhere. And in the last 10 years or so, all he wanted was a Jeep. So he had various Jeeps that he just repaired. And the thing that drove me nuts about this was, so I'd go home again, get in the car to go either to Mitchell's house or to Saugus or wherever we go, taking him to the store or whatever. And if it happened to be raining, you turn the wipers on. And of course, the wipers goes on, and all you're hearing is grrr, 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 you know how it makes that noise. And then you look at it and you realize, on the driver's side, he had this little short wiper blade there. On the right-hand side had, some kind of and you ask him, well, Dad, why are you doing that? Well, I had this in the basement, and I wasn't going to buy one, so I just stuck it on there. And the last story on that is, I said, right now you can just go to the auto parts store, the guy comes out, he sees what you need, and and he'll come and change it out. You don't have to do anything anymore. Well, they'll just charge you too much for that. So we went to the auto parts store when I was there once, and the guy came out, he looked at it, came back to the car, changed everything out, took the old stuff and threw it in the bin that he had next to right where the car was parked in front of the store. So we are leaving, paid the guy, we're leaving. He went to the bin and took back the wipers. He said, this is still good, I can still use these. I can replace the little blade things in the bottom and I'll use this. So that's how he was. And when it came to all his cars, and the last car we had, the last one we had was a little Mitsubishi
Toyota.
A little Toyota car, really nice little car. And this is the first car he didn't mess with, right? Because I think Uncle Mitchell told him, do not touch a thing in this little car. And so now when I went home to go anywhere with him and all that, the car was fine, but he still messed with the wiper blades. Go to the car again and a little rain, and it's like, he went to mess with it. He said, well, I didn't like the one that was on there, I think I put on my own. And so that's what he was. So in all the days of just messing, that's the fun time, because a lot of times when I went home, if it was during the day, or late afternoon, he would always be in the driveway playing with the cars. And you ask him, what's wrong? Well, I just thought I'll just check the fluid and the brakes. I'll check the fluid, I just want to check the fluid and the brakes and change my wiper blades. So that's the stories with Grandpa and Dad on all those cars. It was fun spending time with all the other cars, even though most times nothing was wrong with the car. But he did something, he thought he could always be fixing something to the cars. So for that, it was a great life. Thank you very much.
We spent a lot of years together. We haven't left. It was just me and you and Mom. We had a lot of great times at VAKs. I have this huge garage. It's got 7 Jeeps in there. He had a chair, he sat in the chair, and he couldn't move as well anymore. But he's the yellow to do things. He spent most of his time in the garage, and I'm looking for him, that's where he was. He had a chair right in the middle of all the Jeeps. And he enjoyed sitting there, sitting on the deck. It was reminded of when he was back in Trinidad. But again, we spent a lot of time together, me and Dad, on everything, working on the house, on the cars, whatever. He was always there. Whenever I needed help, he was there. We had 6 apartments in the city, and every time a tenant left, both of us were there, working on the house, doing whatever needed to be done for the new tenants. And he was, you know, thing about that is he used to go and help everybody. But when it comes to doing his own stuff in the house, I don't want to call. He won't do it. And, you know, I say, yelling to me, Wes, just change the toilet down the hill, how come you can do your own toilet? You know, but yes, you know, he says, well, you need to learn on how to do that. You know, so anyway, I will be missing you very much.
One story that I heard about Dad was that my grandfather would call him Old Man Nato. A lot of people used to call him Old Man Nato. And a lot of people used to call him Dad Nato. So Old Man Nato was a mechanical engineer, and he worked for Texaco. So he was a mechanical engineer. He taught mechanical engineering at Texaco in Trinidad. And then all of that, they have two brothers were mechanics also. So guess what? There was no way he was not going to be a mechanic because he had it in his blood. And the story goes is that the teachers, when he, when he was in middle school, instead of him being in class learning, his lessons, the teachers just sent him to fix their cars outside. So, and I'm talking in his, middle school. He was only like, 9, 12 years old. So, or maybe 12, 14 at the time. But so, so mechanic and cars were things. He knew those things, and he worked for a lot of companies, and for working on cars, trucks, boats, worked in everything. Every kind of vehicles there is. He worked for contractors. He worked for so many vehicles all this time. Like I say, he always provided for us. So to end our time together. We'll have song by George Beverly Shea, Until Then. Let's go in peace.